Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi everybody, my name's Leo and I'm an alcoholic. Yes. First of all, let me just say it's a pleasure to be here in Culver City and to be able to be talking to you tonight, and also to listen to the 10-minute speaker, Gail. And somebody said to me, they said, you feeling nervous? I mean, you don't know anyone, well, not very few. You feeling nervous? I said, no, I'm not nervous. And there's a reason. And that is that you never made my father bleed. You never made my mother cry. You never put me this close to jail. So I'm not afraid of you. But there is one person that I'm afraid of, and his name is Leo. I don't know about you, but I've been the single biggest problem in my life. Is that right? And that's very important to know, because I don't have to spend my energy or time trying to fix you. I have to deal with me. I've just come back from San Diego. San Diego, you know, some of you know San Diego. It's not one of my favorite places to go. It's all freeways.
So if powerless equals no power, God equals power, then powerless equals no God. Well, how would I know that? I never knew that. Years ago, the God of my understanding of the religion that I'd been brought up in, I'd abandoned that God when I started drinking. Years ago, I started drinking at 16. Now, I know that's late for a lot of people, but at 16, I started drinking and drugging. And at 16, I stopped going to Mass. I stopped doing the sacraments. I stopped living the religious life that I'd been raised. I abandoned God and spirituality, and I didn't know. And I'd be drunk. And I would be creeping in downstairs in my mum's house, and of course all drunks think they're being quiet, don't they? And I would come stumble bumming in, and my mum, you know, never missed a trick in her house. She like knew every like nook and cranny in that house. You couldn't get one over my mum on that house, and I really did think.
All of you here would agree with me that religion is man-made, but spirituality is God-given. Yes? Yes? Yeah. And religion has divided people up, but spirituality teaches the world to hold hands. Am I right? Am I right? That's very good. Okay. Go ahead. But it's very important, because one of the biggest single things that people are looking for, because this is well, we say it's a spiritual program, and the 12-step promises a spiritual awakening. So I think it's very important for us to ask that question as recovering people. What is this spirituality? What are we about? It's obviously not the same as religion, and by the way, I say that as somebody who personally has been to India, which is mainly Hindu. I've been to Thailand, which is mainly Buddhist. I was in Bali with people who are Muslim. So it's obviously, and by the way, the 12-step programs was very active in those countries. The 12-step program is active in Israel. So what we know is that whatever spirituality is, it isn't about signing up to either a Bible or a Torah or a Quran. What is it? And I only want to share with you because just like they say...
None whatsoever. I certainly didn't know I was alcoholic Even after I got here and I could say I was alcoholic, I never really knew what that was. I got 2 parakeets in one of my houses. I got several houses today. In one of those houses I got 2 parakeets, a blue one and a green one. Bill and Bob is their name. And I've trained them to speak. And you can stand by the cage and they'll screech out at you, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. I'm powerless, powerless. You know. But they're bloody parakeets is what they is, you know, but they can say they're alcoholic, you know. Well, I could say I was alcoholic, but I didn't know what being an alcoholic was. But you guys did, and you taught me. You know, I didn't know that being an alcoholic was that I had an illness, an unnormal, unnatural reaction to alcohol, and that abnormal reaction to alcohol was that it changed my perception of reality. Alcohol changed my perception of reality. You know, now I never knew that, but I was so sick, and all my life
And I wouldn't want that. Say, why did you relapse? Well, I went to see this Father Leo and everything, you know, just send me out. He has that effect on people. It's funny. But I really think this is true. I remember hearing Father Martin. So you know Father Martin, especially those of you who've been in treatment, you saw my Father Martin movies. Father Martin says that boring treatment is no treatment. In other words, if you're bored, that's not going to help. And so all of us, I think, all of us really, as a part of our spirituality, because how we share and how we come across to people makes a big difference. It's all very well saying to somebody, keep coming back, but what are they coming back to? But if you feel loved, remember that saying that we have? Sometimes you've been loved because you didn't love yourself. And somebody loved you until you could begin to love yourself. So that's just for me, so just for you to know. If you say, well, you know, what does he think about spirituality? It's about being positive and creative, because any alcoholic who comes up to this podium, anybody...
And that's why I live this way of life. This is a way of life that I live. I learned it in the beginning because it was a theory, like the beautiful book says. But it's no longer a theory, it's a way of life. This has become a way of life to me. And it's a wonderful way of life that I love, and that I love being a part of. You know? I hope you do too. I hope that it's not just a stepping stone for you. I hope that it becomes a way of life. You know? It's a wonderful way of life too. I'm exhilarated about it. I'm not the same guy that I was when I came in. I have lots of great times and lots of great qualities, and I've got lots of stuff that I look back over. But I ain't broke, busted, disgusted, and not to be trusted tonight like I was when I got here, recovered from a scene.
When Churchill used to visit him in 1944, during the war years, Roosevelt had to go to bed for 3 days after he'd been to see him. He had such a hangover. I'm serious. Eleanor tried to keep him away. Winston. Winston used to drink a bottle of brandy a day. Now it's just the brandy. It's not the sherry or the wine. There's a lovely story about Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was having dinner with Lady Astor, and Lady Astor turned to Winston Churchill and said, Winnie, you're drunk. And Winston Churchill, in his inimitable way, said, Madam, you are ugly. But I will wake up sober in the morning. She was quick to say to him, she says, Winnie, if I was your wife, I'd put poison in your soup.
That came from a Roman Catholic and a Protestant background where they were always arguing about religion, and I was one of those lucky children, but I knew that somebody had made us. You know, I knew somebody had made us. How did we get here? And my favourite songs were All Creatures Great and Small and All Things Bright and Beautiful. I like them kind of songs, you know, and praise the Lord, I am alive, and all them. So I had no problem, and I remember when I've gone back to England and I've had a lot of flashbacks. It's like I've been on acid for 5 months, you know, in sobriety. Try being 9.5 years clean and sober and feeling like you're on acid, and you're not on acid, but it feels like it. So I've had some flashbacks, and, you know, and they do a lot of documentaries and things, and I remember when the Vietnam War was on and I was a little girl, and it showed you what they said was very distressful pictures on television, and I remember praying. Remember praying that the Vietnam War wouldn't come to my country. And I've always prayed. I've always said the Lord's Prayer. And through all the drinking and using and the drug use and everything else, and I must have to say that my drinking and using was not a lot of gloom, doom and despondency. I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of travelling. And I was a busy alcoholic, very busy. And so I'm glad I crashed and burned real fast. But towards the end I used to say, oh God, I can't do this anymore. Please take me. I've had enough, you know. I know.
In the middle of the bedroom. She said, husband, get into those panties.
The cuckoos wouldn't fly over, and you know, what the basis of that insanity that they thought I was insane about was, and this is all in retrospect, by the way, I never knew this at the time, but people would say things to me and I would change it to what I wanted it to be, because I couldn't stand the reality of life and what life's terms was. And so when people said things to me that I didn't like, state of mind and body. I haven't got a hopeless state of mind and body today. I did when I got here. You know, I did when I got here.
And also for some of us, we need to find some new friends. Because this is about a change in attitude, and it's a change of attitude. Change of attitude and personality. It's very powerful. When I was giving this taping on the steps and the traditions, I talked about a God as you understand God, a God as you understand God. It's very powerful. You think over 50 years ago that was said to people. And the kind of God I have today is a God who is alive in my life. God who's alive in my life. It's a Hindu story. It's a beautiful story. It's a Hindu. I'll just say it quickly. It's Hindu. It's about a man who dies and goes to heaven, and he's knocking on the gates of heaven. And God says, who is it? And the man says, it's me. God says, go away. He thinks that's ridiculous. Here I am at the gates of heaven. I want to get in. So he goes back, knocks again. God says, who is it? He says, it's me, George. God says, go away, George. He thinks, God, this is ridiculous. Here I am at the gates of heaven. I want to get in. He goes back. God says, who is it? And the man thinks and remembers. And the man says, it's you. And God says, come in. Can you find God in your life? We may come into this program powerless, and we may come into this program our lives unmanageable, but that's not how it stays. Some of us are beginning to manage our lives today, and some of us are beginning to experience a spiritual power. We've only just begun. Today, I can go on vacation. I know where I've gone. Know who I went with. I was giving a talk to some high school people, and you'd be surprised. You think high school people are smart, but they weren't smart. They didn't know. Can you believe this? They didn't know that Christopher Columbus was alcoholic. They didn't know. You know. Think about it. When he set off, he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was.
On that. And then when I got in trouble for it, blame you for telling me. But you hadn't have told me what I was doing. You told me something else, but I'd switched it because that was my mentality. That's what I did. That's how I call it a hearing problem. I got a hearing problem. I don't hear things not like right. I don't hear things the same as other people. You may do, but I don't. And like looking back, I can remember, things like when I used to come home, and I would come home, and I would be stumble bumming around downstairs, and she would hear me, of course, and she would yell out down the stairs, "Drunk again, son!" And I would say, "So am I, Mum," And she would say, "What the hell's wrong with you, for crying out loud? I've been in bed since 8 o'clock. I ain't drunk." And I would go, "Well, why did she say she was drunk then? She's messing with me is what she is." Because I would hear her say that she was drunk, and of course she...
I felt stronger. I'm 5'7", 5'8" on a very good day. But when I drank, I felt bigger, I felt stronger. I had a stutter, a stutter, a stutter. When I drank, the stutter went. I found a friend. I thought I found a friend in the bottle, and I'll tell you, in England, I don't know about America, but in England, nobody in the 60s and 70s was talking about alcohol as a drug. Everybody I knew drank. It wasn't like cocaine or heroin or even cannabis. It was like everyone. TV personalities drank. Church people. By the way, some people think I'm Roman Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic. I'm not Roman Catholic. Because people say, "Oh, he must be a Catholic." I'm Episcopalian. Catholic light. So anyway, the main thing about it is, I went through university. I'm no fool. I went through university. I went through three universities. Philosophy, theology. And in 1971, I was let loose on a parish church. And just like you, I had to have an excuse to have a drink. And so I said to the other priests, the lost and the lonely, those sheep without a shepherd, they need me. And I knew where they were. They were all in the bar. So it's my excuse. It's an excuse to get to the bar. And by the way, you walk into a bar dressed like this, people notice you. People say there's a penguin at the end of the bar. A walking oil slick's just come in. Everybody, sorry, boring. Everybody. I'll be quick. Everybody, when they see a priest, even if they don't like the priest, they send you a drink. They say, send the priest a drink, send him a double, give him a triple. And then they'd come over and they'd say things like, "You're the kind of priest we like, Jesus sent you. You're not like the other priests. Yeah, you drink like we drink, you smoke like we smoke, you throw up like we throw up." People started to go from their homes and the bars to the church. My church was full of drunks. One woman said to her husband, "Shall we stay at home and listen to Father Leo, or shall we go to church? Because, it's going to be the same as Benny Hill." And by the way, it was. Because I've said it 1,000 times, and you think about it, you've heard enough speakers. If you are a drunk and you drive a bus, there's going to be times you're drunk driving the bus if you're an alcoholic, am I right? If you're a nurse and you're an alcoholic, there's going to be times you're going to be drunk in the hospital, am I right? If you're a priest and an alcoholic, there's going to be times you're drunk doing the service. I remember once doing a funeral. Drunk. I'm serious. I followed the coffin into the hole. Tell you, it's real scary when you hear the amens coming from above. But it was an Irish funeral. Nobody cared. Ah, there's a priest in a hole full of dirt. Full of dirt. Right. They got me out. They just got me out. We carried on. It was full of dirt. They didn't care. Nobody knows about that. Think about your alcoholic drinking. There's a lot of things nobody knows about. I mean, some stuff got out, but most of the time, it's your pain, your loneliness. Remember those lonely nights? The nights you didn't want to live? Somebody calling? It's kind of Jesus on the phone. Bottom line is, a lot of strange things. A lot of very strange things. When you think about it, that only happened with you. But then there were some things that got out. This issue with regards to the funeral, only the people there and myself know. But eventually it was to get out. And I suspect that the reason why we're here tonight is because it got out. Our disease got out. It didn't stay in, it got out. It just kept... How did it get out for me? I mean, it goes without saying that, as with everybody who's here, I could tell you about those lonely nights. The times that we wet the bed, all peed in a corner, thinking it was the toilet. Or made those telephone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning to somebody we met 17 years ago in Cancun. But all of us can identify with the insanity, the loneliness and the fear. But the reason why we're here is because it got out. For me, it got out, I'll tell you, because I was doing big baptism. Big. Many people came. People flew in for the baptism. It was big. About 200 people. And I'd been drinking, but I wasn't drunk. I mean, not drunk. I was mellow. You know what I mean? When you're mellow, you don't need any help. I did this baptism, everybody was there. I said, give me the baby. Give me the baby. I baptized the baby in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Daphne. I didn't ask anybody. The mother, she let loose such a scream. Ah! I said, what's the matter? She said, Father Leo, it's a little girl. And she said, and I baptized it Daphne. She said, it's a little boy. That's right, she said it was a little boy. So now I've baptized a little boy with the name Daphne. She said, is there anything we can do about it? I said, no. I said, forever and a day he will be called Daphne. How do you make amends to a thing like that? Anyway, a few days later, I got a telephone call from a bishop. By the way, a bishop is only an employer dressed in purple. I got a telephone call from the bishop, and the bishop said, Leo, I said, yes. He said, I want to see you tomorrow. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. I thought, why does the bishop want to see me? I'd forgotten all about the baptism. Let's face it, you know, we're the kind of people, we move on. We don't stay. We move on. I go to see the bishop, and the bishop's there, he's got a letter. He said, I've got a letter. It's a letter. I said to the bishop, good. He said, it's about you, you fool. And he looked at me straight in the eyes. He's a small man. He said, are you sick? Are you sick? Are you demented? Are you having a nervous breakdown? And then he said it. He just said it. You know, like they just say, he just said it. And I know you heard it. You heard it from someone. He just said it. He said, had you been drinking? Had you been drinking? Now see if you can identify with this. Who? Me? I swear on the Bible, no. And he couldn't prove it. Don't you love it when that happens? When you know you're telling a lie and they know you're telling a lie, but they can't prove it. Anyway, my bishop, England, this is 1977. It's a long time ago. This year's going to be 22 years. 22 years ago. My bishop looked at me and he said, I think you've got a drink. I think you've got a drinking problem, he said. He said, now quit it. Just, will you quit it? I said, quit it? He said, quit it. I said, I'll quit it. He said, good, quit it. I'm driving home, I'll quit it. I'll just quit it. Nothing about a therapist. Nothing about going to AA. Just quit it. Now, you want to know a funny thing? You want to know a funny thing in Culver City? I quit it for 6 months. Cunning, baffling, powerful, patient. This is a disease that can wait 6 months. And I was to drink again. And by the way, just by the way, that 6 months was not sobriety. I was dry. Wonderful expression we use in AA when people are not sober, they're dry. Dry, you know, if you want a visual, it's like a dry leaf. You know, dry people are like a dry leaf. Any pressure on a dry leaf and it'll snap. How many times have we met people, they just snap? They may not have drank for years, but they're not sober. Sober, you live and you let live. Sober, you learn to bend, you're more supple. Dry is like a dry leaf. Sometimes you meet dry people at the meetings. Yeah? I went to a conference, it was a conference in Texas, AA conference. A guy picked me up, I think he had 4 or 5 years, picks me up in a Cadillac. I'm sitting in the Cadillac, going to the hotel where the conference is going to take place, and the lights changed to red. God, he said, I hate it when they do that. I said, don't worry about it, they'll change back. See, the main thing in our lives is 6 months. I didn't drink for 6 months. No program, no steps, no sponsor, no reading, no sharing, no hearing. Just quit it. 6 months, quit it. But I was to drink again. How was I to drink again? Coincidence. What a coincidence. What is it we say in this program? Coincidence is God working a miracle anonymously. You look at your lives, all the coincidences. Somebody happened to say something, somebody happened to be there, a letter happened to come, the telephone call. Coincidence, we say, but it's a miracle. A miracle in disguise. I got a telephone call to go to a birthday party for a girl's 21st. And when I went to this, you talk about a coincidence, somebody who knew me 5, 6 years ago was at the same party. And they said, I was standing there with 7-Up. I've been drinking 7-Up for 6 months. I was fizzed out on 7-Up. And this woman comes over, she says, your father Leo shook me by the hand, your father shook me by the hand. She said, what are you drinking? I said, 7-Up. She said, you're a gin and tonic man. She said, can I get you a gin and tonic? Yes. The 6 months is over. Now here's another funny thing. You want to know a funny thing in Culver City? Here's another one. I had one drink and I went home. See, I bet some of you thought, oh, he had that drink after 6 months. He's a goner. Gone. Had one drink, went home. But I left my watch. I left my watch in the restaurant. Next morning, I get a telephone call from the barman. He says, I found a watch. He said, is it yours? I said, it's mine. He said, oh, come and get it. I went to get it next day. Same bar, same barman. And I walk in about 11 o'clock in the morning to get my watch, and he says to me, here's your watch, and have one for the road. Last night I had one drink and went home. When I took that drink, the lion was disturbed. And if you're an alcoholic, you know exactly what I mean. There are some times when an alcoholic is no longer drinking because somebody gave them a drink. The alcoholic needs. I needed to drink. And I took that drink, and I took another drink and another drink, and then I took my collar off because I was dressed as a collar, in my collar, and I went to another bar and another bar, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the, what is it, the 3rd of July, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my car hit a tree. The car hit a lamppost. It was a mess. Car hit a tree, hit a lamp, and the car, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the car shut off. The car just shut up. Shut up in the air. 2 old ladies in a garden said, look, there goes Father Leon. That's the way he travels now. Hey, but I didn't stay up there. No, I came down, crash, bang, wallop, got out. God, it's a mess. I'm bleeding, I'm hurt, I'm sitting at the side of on the side of the road. And all of a sudden I had, and I know you had it, I had a moment. A moment. And there's a moment in everybody's life when you see yourself. There's a moment in everybody's life when you see yourself. My moment was a car crash, but maybe your moment was when somebody you love more than anybody else, you're thinking about it tonight, said that they love you, but they're leaving. And there's something about the way they say it. It's like, it's different the way they're saying it. They're really gonna go. Maybe your moment is when you wake up in a jail, and you know you're not a criminal. You have your moment. Maybe your moment is when it's your son or it's your daughter, and you know what? They don't want to know you anymore. There's many moments in this room. There's many moments. And the people who relapse are the people who forget their moments. You've all met people who relapse, you all know people who relapse. It's very easy to know why a person relapses. They forget their moments. I'd love to be able to tell you that because I had a moment and I saw myself, because I saw myself and I saw myself bleeding and I saw myself drunk, I was a mess. I saw it. And I remember saying, I don't want to live that way and I don't want to die that way. That's not the kind of priest I want to be. And from that moment, I went into a hospital. That moment in time when you catch yourself in your own life and you know you're going nowhere. And every one of us in this room, we had that moment. And that, I mean, in a sense, almost like our whole recovery revolves around that moment. And yet it's not enough to have that moment. We have to keep the moment alive. And that's where AA comes in, this fellowship. This fellowship is about keeping the moment alive. The Jews talk about the Holocaust. And the Jews say we write about the Holocaust and we talk about the Holocaust, and we'll always have meetings about the Holocaust. Because if we don't, it might all come back. The Jews have become a people of remembrance. And they hold that remembrance for the whole world. Well, in a similar way, there's another kind of Holocaust. And by the way, it's claimed far more people. It's the Holocaust of alcoholism. And in this fellowship, we write about it, and we talk about it, and we meet about it, and we speak about it, and we share about it, because if we don't, it'll all come back. And you in your mind think of all the people that you know who've relapsed, and I bet you any money they stopped going to meetings, or they stopped sharing at meetings. They didn't really see the need to call the sponsor that much. They didn't necessarily read the big book. They forgot their moment. Everything in this program hinges upon the moment, because that's the moment when you can turn around and say, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, and our lives have become unmanageable. And just for you to know, for me, I was a priest then, I was ordained a priest in 1971. I can tell you that from 1977 is when I started to have a meaningful relationship with God. All that before was gone. And in this 12-step program I found, and this is the powerful thing about it, a God as you understand him. And I'll tell you, it is not for me just a Christian God, it's a bigger God. It's not just about Christianity, it's much, much spiritual. And when this program talks about us turning our lives in a new direction, I suddenly realized, because for a long time I thought that it was God's job not only to get me sober, but to keep me sober. And then I suddenly realized what this program talks about. It talks about the 12, what is it, the 12 steps. Steps. Nobody ever says, Harry, come up and read the 12 standstills. It's the 12 steps. And I suddenly realized the steps are steps that you take. That means we're on a journey. And as we take these steps, so we take the journey. And you're never going to get to step 12, having had a spiritual awakening, when you suddenly start to feel alive. The spiritual awakening, a lot of people, the spiritual awakening for many of us is when we start to have self-worth, self-esteem. And we start to take responsibility. And by the way, responsibility means the ability to respond. And we have the ability to respond. For a long time, I thought my job was to hand my life over to God. So I was kind of saying to God, God, take my life. Take my life. Take it. And God was up there and said, no. Take it. No. And then it's kind of like this spiritual being, this God comes right down and looks at me straight in the eyes and says, why you hand your life over to me? You turn your life. You turn it. We admitted. Who admitted? We did. Came to believe. Who came to believe? I came to believe. Who made a decision? I made a decision. This program is not about God. This program is about you. And it's not about us, you or I, in some silly, irresponsible way, expecting God to take care of our lives. It's about you and I placing our hands in the God as we understand God and making the changes. And sure, we're going to have difficult times, and sure, some people don't like us. And sure, some people will misunderstand, and I'm sure some people will gossip. That's life. That's life. The first line of The Road Less Traveled that some of us have read is that life is difficult. And how can anybody realistically ever come to a podium like this and talk to 60, 70 or 80 people and expect everybody to like you? The one thing about this program is it introduces you to the real world, not the world of fantasy. Addiction is the world of fantasy. The real world is some people will like you and some people connect with you and some people won't. And I'm not going to have bad nights just because some people don't like me. And I suggest that you would be the same. This is not a program of perfection. It's a progressive program. And for me, and I only say it because I know there are one or two people with not a long time here, it's only the first step that talks about alcohol. It's only the first step. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives have become the other steps are about how we change our attitude and our behavior. And by the way, that isn't just about other people, that's about ourselves. Because if you're not able to love yourself, where do you go? Father Martin said it, Clancy said it. It's on a lot of tapes. And that is that sometimes you get somebody come up and they'll say something like, I used to be a drunken thief, and today I'm a sober thief. And Clancy, I, and the others say, you cannot be a thief in this program. This program is not just about not drinking. This program is about our whole lives changing. And just like an alcoholic used alcohol, and I suppose an addict used drugs, so we cannot today use people. So there is in this fellowship no place for racism, no place for sexism, no place for putting people down. It's a spiritual program that is about you and I learning not only to love ourselves, but to accept others. And we've only just begun. We meet here to be inspired, and this program will inspire us. We meet here to find out pieces of our lives so that our lives can change, and we find them here. One alcoholic talking to another, honestly and frankly. And being that positive and creative person. Being that person. I kid you not, I have taken this 12-step program that I placed in my life, and just for you to know, I'm leaving my church at the end of, in fact, next Sunday is my last Sunday. And I've been in Hawthorne at St. George's for 8 years. And I took the 12-step program alongside my church service. Some of you know that. 80%, probably 80% of my congregation is recovering. 80%. The other 20% should be. But you say, is it true? It's true. It's true. Not all of them are recovering alcoholics, but some of them are codependents, or they're Al-Anon, or they're sex addicts, or whatever. But 80% of my congregation, and by the way, they are the people who have been wounded. So they know how to offer love to those who have been wounded. How can you reach out to somebody who's suffering if you don't know suffering? Some of the cruelest people I've ever met are the people who've never experienced any pain or suffering in their lives, and they're tragic figures. Some of the people who are the noblest people, the people who really make an impact, men and women, are people who have been wounded. And so I try to practice the 12 steps and the traditions, not only in my church, but also in my office. And after 8 years, and many of you are at a point in your lives, you know, where you need to stretch to the next level. Some of you are already thinking about what that's going to be for you, because you don't want to stay in a rut. For 8 years I was at this church, and now I know that I do so much national work and writing and everything. Now I need to let it go. And do the spirituality lectures and talks and retreats that I do. It's amazing. I'm able to take the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and place them in retreats that we do all over the place. In Mexico, in Sedona. We've only just begun. We've only just begun. And so as I end my talk, so that at least that person who's trying to telephone can get through. God forbid they should have to wait. But as I end the talk, I was invited to go to a place called Atlanta in Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia. And I couldn't believe it. There was about 3,000 people at an AA convention. And I shared my story rather like I've shared my story tonight. It was a bit longer. They give you a little bit more time, but very similar story. And I remember, because I always do it, I share the moment. The moment when you see yourself. And you keep that moment alive. Well, afterwards, a young man came over. There was a whole crowd of people. And this young man came over. And he got me by the hand. And he said, "My name's David. I'm an alcoholic and a crack addict." I said, "Thanks, David." He said, "I loved what you said about the moment." I said, "Did you?" He said, "I loved it." He said, "Do you think that you can have moments besides car crashes?" Oh, I said, "Surely. Surely. For some people, it's a car crash. For other people, it's a divorce. For some people, it's waking up in jail. For some people, your moment is when the child, and by the way, don't let anybody say you don't love your child. But your child doesn't want to know you. I said, "David, there's many moments." He says, "Glad you said it," because he said I had a moment. He said, "And when I heard you share, when I heard you talk, the moment came back to me." I said, "David, what was your moment?" He said, I'm going to tell you. Because he said what triggered it was your English accent. He said, "Because I live here in Atlanta. And I was going to go out to get some cocaine. And he said, I had my collar up, and I was going out. I knew where I was going. And he said, have you ever listened to the radio, but you never heard it? Have you ever listened to a song, but you never heard the song? He said, because I was just going out, had my coat on, ready to go. And he said, all of a sudden, a song. And that song had the same impact on me as your car crash. I said, what was the words of the song? What was the song? Well, he said the song was sung by a group that comes from England, the Beatles. He said, and he said, I'd listened to that song so many times, but I never heard it. He said, the words of the song that created my moment were these. When I was a young man, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now those days have gone, I'm not so self-assured. You see, now I find I've changed my mind and I've opened up the door. So help me. Help me if you can. I'm feeling down. And I do appreciate you being around. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me? And he said, Leo, there was help for me. I said, I know, David, because some years before there was help for me too. And by the way, that is why we are here tonight. We came here to Culver City, this center, at 8 o'clock, because we know there is help if you want it, but you have to really want it. I mean, really want it. Want it more than a husband or a wife, more than a boyfriend or girlfriend, more than anything. Because if you have sobriety, you have the world. We're here tonight to get the help. And in this program, I can only speak for me. In this program, I've lived like I've never lived before. In this program, I've loved and begun to love myself like I've never loved before. And maybe one of the most important qualities. In this program, I've laughed. I've laughed again like I've never laughed before. Thanks for listening.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.